In this week's Arry The Stag video, we wandered down to Breamore House down in Fordingbridge in Hampshire for a wonderful classic car weekend. The weather was incredibly hot, as it has been in recent weeks, over 30 degrees, but there was a really good turnout of a variety of different types of classic car. And despite the weather being so hot, which I'm sure kept one or two exhibitors away and indeed the public, we still had a wonderful time. And just take a look at this wonderful example of an E-type Jaguar. It was absolutely pristine, immaculate, looked like it had just rolled off the production line, and the owner gave an interview in the arena regarding his beloved car and just how much effort he put into it. I believe it was a Old English white originally, and yet this is now jet black, as you can see, with stunning engineering, clean as a whistle. You could eat your dinner off the engine bay, as you can see there. And looking on the interior to a kind of grey leather interior that he'd done, and everything as it just should be. And you can see here just how immaculate the car is, with the E-type steering wheel and the boss there on the centre. And yeah, just standing back to look at this car and listening to the engine running, it was just something else, and a real privilege to see it. Equally, there were many other marks there, from the Talbot Sunbeams to the Triumph Stags, Hillmans, Fords, all sorts of different types of vehicle. And given that the sun was shining, many had their roofs down to show off their internal passenger compartments, and it was really great to see such a variety of different Stags and other classic cars, including one or two commercials as well. Even my missus had a great time, and she was rather swooned by this Mercedes 280 SL. But the star of the show from her point of view was this Austin Healey 104, which was an absolute stunning looking car, and the owner had done a fantastic job of keeping it on the road. In fact, he bought it new, he said, back in 1950 something or other. So well done him. What a car. Now, we will explain a little bit later why on earth UES 591S got into the finalists compound. I was quite surprised and suffering a bit of imposter syndrome, actually. But before that, so stay on to the end and you'll see that at the end. What I wanted to do was just look at a car that a guy called Paul had put together, where he'd super modded this beautiful Triumph Stag. Okay, so this is Paul. So here at Breamore House, the classic car show, got something to show us in terms of a modified Stag, yeah?
Yep.
Now, sadly, because of the background noise, I chose to do a voiceover over this piece because it was really interfering with the film. But Paul was talking about what he put in here, which is a Rover 4.6 Range Rover engine, which has got a homemade fuel injection system. He's got his homemade throttle bodies and injector rails that he put together himself, with custom adapters and inlet manifolds, all done by himself, which is very, very good. He talked about a Mega Squirt ECU system here, which you can see is numbered there, which controls the sparks and also the fueling as well, which is really good. And he's crammed a lot into the engine bay, as you can see, including a standardised Triumph Stag radiator, which if you take the rail off the top, he said would actually fit inside the hole there, which was really great to see. The Audi A4 fan is down the bottom, and that is good. And he also had to keep the existing steering pump standard, although it's chromed. And in Equip reckons that this engine puts out between 250 and 300 brake horsepower, something like that, he said. So I asked him the question about the drivetrain, and of course, yes, it had to be adapted for that. So inside he's got a Rover 5-speed gearbox, and that copes with the power extremely well, and also a customized built prop shaft underneath, feeding a BMW back axle, which is from a 3 Series estate, I understand, and has fitted with disc brakes as well. I talked about the bodywork and how immaculate it was. He said it wasn't as good as it used to be, but it is better. It is okay. So he's very pleased with that. And I must admit, I mean, looking at the car, it's just awesome. Custom front hubs with uprated discs and brakes. And you know, I think you can just see there what a stunning looking motor it is. I asked him what it drove like, and he said, well, it's pretty lively and it's very harsh, and good on nice wet tarmac, but not so good on local roads. And so that was quite interesting. I did ask him about the dampers, and yes, he has got adjustable dampers on there, front and back, and so he quipped about just watching out for speed bumps with these things, and it all drives absolutely beautifully, and with that kind of power under your right foot, amazing just what a car like this can do, I guess. And he's very, very chuffed with it. He talked about the spoiler at the front, and we referred to the cooling earlier on, and he's fitted in this car a TR6 rubber air dam that is mounted underneath the chrome front bumper there. You can just about see it underneath. It really helps with the airflow apparently, and helps cool this Stag, although he was of the view that the radiator in it was more than man enough to cope with cooling, and almost poo-poo the fact that we tend to get overheating problems. He reckons absolutely right that, you know, well sorted Stags with decent radiators all day long will cool the engines, and this one is no different. He said it's a straight fit, straight from TR6 to the Stag, and that actually on track days, he's done a few track days on it, that he even takes off the number plate and the number plate mounting there to encourage air through the system. So that's great, Paul. Thanks very much for showing us the car. Now, I mentioned earlier suffering a little bit of imposter syndrome by UES 591S making it to the finals, and we were asked to appear in the paddock with different categories of cars from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s, with a winner and a runner-up. There was also car of the show and a runner-up as well, and you'll see the two there, the white Capri and the green Toyota Celica were stars of the show, the entire show, which was really good to see. And from our point of view, I was still bewildered as to, having had all the gongs given out, why the Triumph Stag had been invited. I was very pleased to be along, don't get me wrong, but earlier on I had explained the background to Arry The Stag and the channel and the boys, and perhaps inspiring and motivating youngsters to come through and appreciate classic cars of all sorts of descriptions, and that this really was the legacy of Arry The Stag as you lovely lot, and the global reach that we have through all of that. So because of that, the judges took a special consideration and made a special award and said thank you to Arry The Stag for making that happen, which I thought was a lovely, lovely surprise. And so UES 591S, please take a bow. Well done. What a lovely surprise that was. And on behalf of Arry The Stag, thank you very much to Breamore House and the Classic Motor Events team. Fantastic work.